guys, we've done it. Are you all right? Are you all right? Could you know who I feel like saying that? Holly Willoughby. I'm not flattering myself by saying that. Does anyone remember that when she came back on to This Morning the first time after the whole Philip Schofield scandal? And the first thing she said to camera was, "Firstly, are you okay?" I don't know about you, but I was like, me, am I okay? Yes, Holly, I'm fine. Of all the things in the world for me not to be okay with, finding out that Gordon the Gopher's millionaire mate is a nonce is not something that's going to keep me worried, funnily enough. Anyway, so, Cotgrave. Is it usually this pungent? Because I don't want to be harsh on Cotgrave. It's given me a lovely welcome so far, but just, well, you know, I don't need to tell you. Fucking stinks, doesn't it? Absolutely reeks in here. So thank you for, if nothing else, just sticking with that. I know everyone was blaming a dog. I've been saying for the last hour, it's not a dog. It's not a dog. It's the pipes. But I don't know, what do I know about pipes? Anyway, so I'm not familiar with Cotgrave at all. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from Nottingham. I'm in fact from the quaint picture postcard town of Luton. And Luton's had a really bad reputation for a long time now. It's probably not been helped by the fact that it's the setting for 24 hours in police custody. And back in 2004, it was voted worst UK town to live in. And that's an award it was actually given again just last year. So, you know, fair play. It's really put the work into staying absolutely shit for 2 full decades. Much like my husband. But yeah, I feel that Luton does get a bad rep, really, and it's a bit unfair because there are some big names to come out of Luton. I mean, can anyone actually name me one of the Luton alumni? Because it is something quite impressive. Anyone name me anyone famous from Luton? Who? Andrew Tate. Fucking boiled egg on a body, yes. Andrew Tate, less said about him the better. But it has, on the plus side, also given us Paul Young. Come on. Yes, thank you, Sensoruna Donna. Paul Young. It's given us Stacey Dooley. And, yes, thank you, Stacey Fanzin. And, of course, that naughty little fascist, Tommy Robinson. So, you know, actually, did someone just say we love Tommy? Oh, okay. Okay. Wasn't prepared for that. But yeah, actually, Tommy Robinson's brother was in my year at school, funnily enough, because obviously we both grew up in Luton, and he was a nice lad. Yeah, he was ginger, but good at maths, which actually is exactly what it says on his Tinder profile. So he's kept that going. But yeah, it's growing up in Luton was interesting, you know, not least because I was raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic schools all through my education. And perhaps one of the most memorable teachers I had at secondary school was a Scottish nun called Sister Mary. And Sister Mary was head of RE, as you'd imagine, but she also taught French, which as a kid I found really funny because of her Scottish accent. And in year 7, when she first started teaching us, she was really nurturing and sweet and gentle, like a Mrs. Doubtfire character. So when you'd come into the classroom, she'd say, "Fermez le porte, s'il vous plaît. Fermez le porte." You'd close the door and sit down and you were in for a treat. But then when we got into year 8, she had to step things up a little bit. She had to get a bit stricter. She became kind of more of a Nicola Sturgeon kind of character, if you will. And if she caught you talking, she'd say, "Fermez le bouche, s'il vous plaît. Fermez le bouche." And then by year 9, we'd gone completely feral, and she'd gone full Begbie from Train Spotting. I'm not joking, like you could not breathe in there, you know? And remember, this was a Catholic school. You know, you'd walk in and she'd go, "I see thee! I see thee! Sit down or I'll flatten you, you specky little cunt!" So, Yeah, so Catholicism wasn't really for me. I kind of shunned the Catholic Church pretty early. But did mean I didn't have to go to church at the weekends or Sunday school, and instead I could go and work at an elderly care home, which I did for quite a few years. I worked quite a lot of night shifts when I was there, and I used to go in for a 12-hour night shift, 17 years old in my little nurse's uniform, pushing my little trolley along, fully responsible for administering medication to people with complex medical needs. Totally reasonable, because it was the 90s. Actually, my Catholic upbringing did come in handy there, because one of my main jobs was to give out what I called the Holy Trinity, which was Horlicks, Senecot, and diazepam, which I've since realised actually sounds like a pretty fucking good night now, doesn't it? And so I'd be going around with my little trolley, and because I was the youngest carer there by quite a margin, some of the other staff, and I'm sure you've all had this before in jobs when you're the youngest, they like to assert a bit of dominance, don't they? Some of the older staff, I was this young girl just studying my A-levels, working at the weekends, they wanted to have a little bit of power over me, so they'd always give me the worst jobs. And one of those was that there was a lovely gentleman I looked after called Jimmy John. And Jimmy, I still to this day don't know how Jimmy did it, but he frequently used to curl out a perfectly formed turd and then place it neatly on the dining room windowsill. It was impressive. And the staff would just give me the look, little nod, and I'd know I needed to go and get my gloves and clean it up. And then when it came to bedtime, after I'd done my rounds, the staff would look, and usually the manager would look at me and go, "Oh, Kate, it's your turn to put Jimmy John to bed tonight." And before I could even respond, Jimmy would just be there already, heavy breathing. And still to this day, it's the only time I've ever made a man's glasses steam up. And every time he did the same thing, he'd go, "Oh, you're lovely, you are. Oh, you're lovely, aren't you?" I'd be like, "Thank you, Jimmy." And then the staff would smirk to themselves as I'd take his hand and lead him upstairs for bedtime. Bath and bedtime. But joke was on them. I loved it. But Jimmy, bless him, lovely man. He died about 10 years ago, and he actually left me his house. So who's laughing now, ladies? Who's laughing now? But yeah, I like to think that my work as a carer, and subsequently my last 20 years as a teacher, has hopefully made me quite a compassionate, empathetic person. Except, however, when it comes to my husband. And I don't know if any of you can identify with this, but for some reason, when our partners are ill, for example, they become instantly repugnant. Like when we're ill, we expect them to be sympathetic and to look after us. But when it's them, no fucking way. I've got no time for it. Get up, you snivelling little weasel. There's just nothing, no compassion in my body. And this is compounded with my husband by the fact that even when he's not ill, he's a very, very sleepy man. He's always, I don't know why, but he's always fucking tired. I don't know why he's so tired. I'm not joking. One time, years ago, we were getting into bed, and I realised that mid-conversation, he'd fallen asleep with one leg in the bed and one foot still fully on the floor. You can imagine how difficult the early parenthood days were, holding a newborn, up, what it's like, up all through the night with the baby crying, feeding, settling, winding, and he was just completely oblivious. And it never failed to amaze me that I could be sitting there in bed, cradling this tiny newborn baby, and despite the overwhelming exhaustion, that rush of oxytocin through my body would just make me look at them and think, I didn't think it was possible to love anything this much. And then I'd just pan round and see this balding lummox snoring out some sort of scrambled egg breath. And I just think, I'm going to pierce you through your skull. But yeah, I mean, it's probably quite problematic, really, because I've been thinking about this, and I'd say probably as adults, we must spend, on average, I don't know, about 30% of our time asleep, but 70% in my husband's case. And I was just thinking, if I can't stand him when he's asleep, then I must only like my husband 30% of the time. Oh my God. I've got some thinking to do. Thank you very much. You've been amazing. Thank you.
Okay, Vincent!